A rare breed of individuals are able to create simple, profitable, and smarter operations by strategizing a superior setup. This separates between the select few, the handful of legends who flourish, and the rest. It divides the investment world between many mediocre companies and the few elite ones with extraordinary potential. Those are the ones that outperform. It all starts with a CEO who is at the top of his game and has a large personal financial stake in the companies he leads. That's the wealth formula. Few can claim that they are as reliable as Mr. Amir Adnani at building shareholder value. He's the founder and the man behind two world-class companies, and he has attracted the financial backing of Sprott, Rick Rue, Doug Casey, Marin Katusa, Gold Mining Inc., Step up to the big leagues. Go to wealthresearchgroup.com/big leagues to get a taste of what the mining legends are saying about Amir. Welcome to the Titans of Industry show. I'm here with the legendary Doug Casey, a good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, and he just released actually a new book, the second out of 7 novels. Doug has talked to me about these books for a while. I'm glad that it's working out. They're beautiful novels. The first one was out last year. It's called The Speculator. Great book. The new one, Drug Lord, out now. It's on Amazon, correct, Doug?
Yes. We trace the evolution of our hero, who was Charles Knight, who was age 23 when he became a speculator in Africa in the mining business. And now he's age 30, and he's decided to get back into business, and he's a drug lord. Both the DEA type drugs and the FDA type drugs. And as you can imagine, I believe both of these agencies should be abolished. So. Definitely.
And of course, founder of Casey Research, one of the predominant mining newsletters of all time. So I'm glad we got to do this, and I'm here at the Sprott conference in Vancouver. I know you are too. We're doing this here at the first day of the conference. I want to ask you firstly about the gold sector. Let's start with the gold sector, and I want to ask you specifically about inflation. We aren't seeing high levels of inflation. I know, John Williams. I've had him on from Shadow Stats. He said that using 1980 inflation, it is pretty high, but overall, even here in Vancouver, which is a high-end city, you're not seeing excessive amounts of inflation, and that is part of the story that keeps gold back and not exploding higher to 52-week highs. But on the flip side, you just had Janet Yellen telling you that, hey, we're not going to raise rates too much anymore this year, probably not for the next 6 months, and so you got a clear takeoff runway for gold on that front, and the dollar is basically in a bear market. So what is going on right now in the gold sector? And if you don't mind, what's going on with silver?
Okay, good questions, Lior. Inflation. Where's all the inflation? Because we know that not just the U.S. Federal Reserve is printing up trillions of new dollars because the U.S. government is running gigantic deficits, but the European Central Bank is, the Chinese, the Japanese, and all these little minor countries are printing up lots of money too. So where's the inflation? Because it's caused by an excess of purchasing media, of currency. It's all this money is going into financial markets, it's going into bubbles. We have a bubble, a real bubble in the stock market by any parameters. We have a super bubble, a hyper bubble in the bond market, where interest rates are below zero in some cases. We've got a super bubble in the real estate market right here in Vancouver, one of the most expensive cities in the world. So that's where all the money's gone this time. During the early 80s, It went into retail things, food and things of this nature. But actually, we're getting a lot of retail inflation. It's just most of it is in the financial markets. So that's the answer to that. I think it's going to be a complete catastrophe. The bubble is going to burst. And at that point, a lot of people who think they have assets will find out that they don't, in fact. So I am speculating in various sectors of the market, but I like to buy more gold coins and more silver coins too. Although silver is so cheap that it's hard to store a significant amount of the things.
Sure. So, with regards to seeing inflation moving to the to Main Street and getting becoming a problem, the something I've been working on lately, Doug, and I'd like your comment on this, is the fact that unemployment rates are very low in the U.S. and what the Fed, in my opinion, are fearing is what they've done in the 60s and 70s, where the unemployment rate got unnaturally too low, and then they had excessive rates of inflation. I think that's why they're taming down what they're doing. They're trying to shrink their balance sheets, and it's because they know that they might get something that spirals out of their control, and obviously they don't want that after 9 years of being hailed as heroes and saviors of the the banking system. Do you think that we can see inflation starting to go and trickle into to the average guy in Main Street, and it's because unemployment is very, very healthy right now?
Well, first of all, I don't really trust these unemployment figures because having lived in Argentina for years, I've come to the opinion that the U.S. government is only marginally better and marginally more honest at reporting the numbers than the Argentine government was. And everything the Argentine government reported under the Kirchners was a total lie. So, first of all, I don't believe that. And in terms of the percentage of working age people that are employed, which is different from unemployment, that's very, very high. We've got about 110 million people of working age that are not employed, that are not working in the U.S. And they're not reported as unemployed because they're reported as people that are discouraged workers that aren't looking for a job. So I don't believe it. But listen, let's go a little bit further down the road, because over the next generation, over the next 20 years, with artificial intelligence and robotics, the whole economy of the world is going to be upset, where many, many people, tens, hundreds of millions of people, are going to lose their jobs and have to find something different to do. It's going to be like it was in England in the early 1800s. So forget about these numbers that are currently reported. They're dishonest, and things are going to change rapidly and radically in just the next few years to start with.
Interesting. I want to ask you about the junior mining sector. I mean, look, when you go into the Sprott conference, you see about 50 booths of companies, all sorts of companies, everyone handing you out their brochures, their perspectives. What is it that makes one of them the mother lode, the one that gets you the big rewards, and all the other ones, they're going to be mediocre companies at best? What is that X factor that creates a real winner in this sector? And people need to know this, because they spend a lot of time and a lot of research finding out the best companies, and you and I both know that it's not only the grade in the ground or how good the resource is. It's beyond that, and it's much more complicated to get these companies into winning territories. So what has been the number one thing for you, because you've had many amazing success stories over the years?
Well, you can get lucky in this market, and of course, since junior resource stocks are by far the most volatile class of securities in the world, more volatile than tech stocks, internet stocks, So what's the key, is the question. Well, I've put together a mnemonic of 9 things that all begin with a P, conveniently, that somebody who wants to speculate, and you can't really invest. You have to think of these things as speculations, not investments. The first on the list, and more important than all the other things, is people. Good people will make for good business, bad people for bad business. Good people can take a worthless shell and turn it into a major company. Bad people will do just the opposite. They'll take a major company and turn it into a worthless shell. So the advantage of coming to a show like this one here that Sprott's putting on in Vancouver is that you can meet these guys that are running the companies personally and size them up. Just see who the human beings are and look at their track records. I mean, if a guy's never had any success in his whole life, well, this time might be the charm, but best not to bet that way. So people's number one. Then, of course, property is number 2. You've got to have an economic deposit, and only 1 out of 3,000 is the statistic, and it's accurate, of findings that are later investigated ever turn into a mine. So it's a long shot type business. And then you've got the politics of the company. Then you've got the financing with the PH, because you can have something wonderful. If you can't raise the money, if you can't get the financing, it's not going anywhere. And then the thing is the push. What's the catalyst that's going to set the thing off? The promotion. Are these guys over-promoting it in order to blow their paper off, or under-promoting it? In which case, once you take the bushel basket off the light, it goes up. There are lots of factors, but number one, Lior, it's the people. You've got to know who the guys are that are running the companies.
Let me ask you about this, because this is very interesting, and you know, this is not my first conference, and I see a real generational gap. You see these people that are 60 something, and they've had their turn in the sun. They've done amazingly well. Some of them are billionaires, and then you see a 20-year gap. You don't see the young people are gone from the mining industry. And you know, for me, being 33, looking for a guy who knows what he's doing, that is my age or a little bit above, that you can make money for decades with, it's hard.
Oh, listen, you're an anomaly, being 33 and interested in mining, because you're quite correct. Actually, there really aren't a lot of young people involved in this. I mean, it was only the Colorado School of Mines was going to close down because they didn't have enough students that were interested in taking their courses. And it's logical. All the young people today are playing with computer tech, they're playing with AI, they're playing with biotech. Very few young people want to go out and dig in the dirt with big yellow trucks. Mining, essentially, is a 19th century choo-choo train business. And it's very hard work. I mean, it's much better to be involved with high tech. So yeah, you're right. And well, that's presenting opportunity, though, because oddly, the world needs more and more of these metals, copper and nickel and titanium and lithium and you name it. But there are less and less people interested in digging the things out of the ground. Of course, my opinion is that a generation from now, most of the mining is going to be done in the asteroid belt. And that'll solve the problem. But that's over a generation from now.
Well, we've seen, very interested, and I know you've seen this as well, is that it's been reported that mining is the last industry to start seeing automation and you know, intelligence coming in. It was and it is a very hardcore business, but now it's starting to have these advanced technologies because mining is getting harder. Very few gold discoveries in the last 20 years, 0 zinc discoveries. It's getting harder and harder to find. big deposits, high grade deposits, and
yeah, the whole world has been pretty well cherry picked over the last 2,000 years.
True. And so, yeah, people are so what do you do to size up people, Doug?
Well, it's just a question of meeting the guy and saying, is he honest? Well, everybody's got his own methodology for making a decision whether you're dealing with a good person, essentially, or a bad person. Is he competent? Does he have the knowledge? Does he have the experience? It's just dealing with people. So maybe, I don't know, but maybe a lot of the younger people today that are staying inside and just playing with computers all day, maybe they don't have the people assessment skills that they might for that reason. I don't know. It's a new world in so many different ways that's developing right before our eyes. And it's a new world in every way. I think demographically, what's going on in the world today is going to make things radically different. I mean, I think it's likely that there's going to be a migration of millions and millions of Africans from south of the Sahara to Europe, and at the same time, millions and millions of Chinese to Africa. And, you know, militarily, the technology is changing radically. It's going to be very interesting watching what goes on.
Well, let's talk about some of these changes and what we've seen, the rise of abstract forms of money. For thousands of years, money's been an atom. It's been commodity. It's been something tangible. And now we're seeing a shift into cryptographic forms of cash and currency, etc. What do you see as how is this going to compete with useless fiat currencies?
Yeah, that's a critical question, an important question, actually. For the last 100 years, well, less than that, let's say since the 1930s, before the 1930s, all over the world, if you had money, you had actual gold coins in your pocket that you used in day-to-day commerce. And since the 1930s, governments have been able to redeem other governments' currencies for gold. Since 1970, 71, that's stopped. So all the currencies in the world, there are no exceptions, are all fiat. They're all just paper that can be printed in unlimited quantities by the central banks of the world. So most of the currencies in the world, all of them basically, are just floating abstractions. They're dead ducks. They're on their way out. They're just pieces of paper that have no value at all. Well, temporarily, because they're accepted by other people. So this is why the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin first and the Ethereum, there's 1,000, literally 1,000 others, and more every week, are so important. Now, they're just fiat currencies too, but some of them are limited as to the number that can be created. I think there will never be more than 23 million Bitcoins, for instance. So they're a medium of exchange, and to some limited degree, as long as they're accepted, they're a store of value. Why are they a store of value? Because they're a convenient transfer device for wealth. Right now, as you know, if you have dollars in country A and you want to send them to country B, unless there are foreign exchange controls in which you can't send them anywhere, you're stuck with them, you've got to go through the SWIFT system, through the banking system, which is slow, expensive, and actually a little bit unreliable. So this is one of the big advantages to Bitcoin. Another thing is it's very private. You can keep your Bitcoin fiat currency out of the banking system. And it's dangerous keeping currency in the banking system because most of the banks in the world are actually bankrupt. That's very dangerous. What happened in Cyprus a few years ago is going to happen in other countries. So a lot of advantages to these cryptocurrencies. And as you get different versions, you get version 0.20, 2.0, 3.0, etc., I think it's going to become possible and easy to trade your cryptocurrencies instantaneously for gold or silver. So I think they're absolutely wonderful. They're private, they're secret, they're convenient. A big improvement over something that a government controls, and you have to keep in a bank.
Interesting. Lastly, Doug, I want to ask you about China. We see this country forming, and it's becoming the Chinese century. Obviously, they have many problems going forward, as any other country has to face. But the amazing potential of the rise of their middle class and the immense population there, it's a force to be reckoned with. I mean, let's be honest, the amount of people there is just ridiculously high in proportion to other countries. What do you see as the main potential to play the Chinese century?
Yeah, that's a good question, of course. I'm a big believer in China. I really am. The first time I went to Beijing, when did I go there? I went there in about 1976. And the Beijing airport was the size of the little airport we have in Aspen, Colorado. It's teeny weeny. And when we drove from that airport into Beijing, it was on a 2-lane blacktop where the farmers on both sides of the road were still working with ox carts. I mean, the transformation of China in the last 40 years has literally been beyond belief. It's breathtaking. And there's no reason it's not going to continue, because all these technologies in the world, computer tech, artificial intelligence, biotech, space technology, a whole bunch of them are all advancing at the rate of Moore's Law. And the Chinese are at the leading edge of all these things. It's no, I mean, I wish I could just buy China. Their stock market's pretty cheap right now. I think it's actually a good speculation. So I'm a big believer in China. And
is their fascination, is their attraction to gold been dumbed down by this new generation, by their middle class, by the nouveau rich, or is this country relentless with regards to their appreciation of the thousands of years in which this one commodity, one element has proved itself as the best form of money?
Well, China is as a country, looking at things by country, is the largest gold mining country in the world. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, South Africa alone mined like 50% of all the gold in the world in any given year. Now China is the biggest, bigger than Canada, Australia, the U.S., Russia. And interestingly, it doesn't export any gold, it imports gold. So the Chinese are buying a lot of gold, and the Chinese government is encouraging the people to buy gold. And if you go to China, and the last time I was there was, 3, 4 years ago, but even then, there were gold shops all over the place. And they were busy, where you could buy coins or you could buy gold jewelry, which was very simple. And was really, you buy jewelry which was sold by the ounce. So you weren't buying it as jewelry, you were buying it as a kind of a convenient way to store gold. It's not in coin form. So, I think grandmothers and grandfathers, even through the ugly Mao years, pass the word to their sons and grandsons and granddaughters. Hey, don't hold on to this paper currency the government issues. We've seen it dry up and blow away and turn into nothing in the past. Buy gold. So I think it's part of the cultural tradition of the Chinese.
Doug, before we head off here, it's a funny question, but do you think we are going to see a beautiful bull market for gold and silver stocks, the juniors, in the next few years, that will be one of those that you'll remember for the rest of your life?
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, let me preface that, Lior, by saying that it was wonderful playing with these stocks in the 70s, which is ancient history, of course. at this point to many of your listeners, because huh? Yeah, sure. A lot of you guys weren't even born, but a lot of these stocks went up 10 times, 100 times. I've actually been in a stock that went up 1,000. Two stocks actually. The two of them were Diamond Fields and Brex that went up 1,000 times in price. I mean, this is life changing when you get on board something like that. Things have been different in recent years in the mining space, but look, I always look at the bright side of everything. And with these governments around the world creating trillions of new currency units, it's going to create not only a bubble in the things that we've mentioned, real estate and conventional stocks and bonds, it's going to create a bubble in gold and gold stocks at some point. It's just inevitable. So this is an excellent time to be building a position in solid, well-managed mining companies. It's going to happen. We're going to have one more big kick at the cat before the world monetary system blows up, and then I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be a gigantic depression, and who knows, maybe World War III or something that looks like it. But let's look at the bright side. There's going to be a bubble in gold, and there's going to be a super bubble, I think, in gold stocks. So that's the good news.
So you're accumulating right now. You're in buy mode.
I am in buy mode, yes. I'm selective. That's one thing I've learned, because most of these things are just guys print up stock certificates and raise the money and live high off the hog, and maybe they put some of the money in the ground. So it's very important to get a company with good people running it. But absolutely, I'm in buy mode. Yes, and I recommend that.
Okay, well, perfect. Hey, thanks for taking time to do the interview. I will make sure that we put out the link to Amazon for the new book. I mean, I really appreciate you sending me a pre-copy, and it was a wonderful read, as was the first book. And thanks for taking the time to doing this today. And we'll see you later. We'll grab a cup of coffee or something. Thanks, Doug.
Fantastic, Lear. Bye.